All right, and now we're back here, and we're saying that the dev container is going to allow us to create a customized environment. We got a link here in the documentation to create a new one, but we're just going to keep reading on here on the first section. We can define a single dev container for a repository or different configurations for different branches or multiple configurations. So if you have one branch that you want a different environment, or you want multiple environments per the same repo, I guess you can do that too. If you start from a template, then you can have one or more dev container configuration files in your workspace. Then this one, just to have a tab that open. Dev container JSON, so it's going to be describing the JSON file that is needed to define this environment, this container. So it's going to be dev container JSON. It can contain, framework tools, extension, and port forwarding. And it can reference a Docker file, which it's alongside that JSON file. The dev container JSON file is usually located in that folder, that dev container directory. Or you can have in the root if you name it with a period at the beginning. For multiple environments, I guess you can do multiple configurations. You can do subdirectories. That is interesting. Okay, but when you go to create a code space, then it's only going to pick one of the configurations. It's not going to pick all of them. Oh, you can inherit. Oh, no, never mind. So the settings cannot be imported or inherited between the container files. Okay, so no inheritance, and there are no imports. If a dev container file is in a custom subdirectory has dependent files, such as Docker files or scripts that are run by commands in the dev container JSON file, it is recommended that you locate these files in the same subdirectory. So all files needed have to be in the same folder. Settings, specifications, how to use the JSON file. So it says that provide a customization rather than personalization. You should only include things that everyone working on the code base needs as standard elements of the development environment, not things that are personal preferences. Things like linters are good for standardizing on and to require everyone to have a install, so they are good to include in your dev container. Things like user interface decorators or themes are personal choices that should not be put on that file, that JSON file. You can personalize your code spaces by using dot files and settings sync. We're not going to go into that right now. We're just going to focus on dev container files. Docker file. You can add a Docker file as part of your dev container configuration. Oh, let me make that bigger a little bit. Dev container configuration. The Docker file is a text file. Well, we all know what the Docker file is. The image is used to generate a development container each time someone creates a code space using the dev container JSON file. So the JSON file references this Docker file. It's a typical Docker file referencing the base image. And it's located in that same folder. Oh, as an alternative to Docker file, you can use an image property in the dev container JSON file to refer directly to an existing image you want to use. The image you specify here must be allowed by any organization image policy that has been set. So if that's another container image already defined somewhere else, then you can use that. And remember that a container image can also be built by other things other than Docker files. And then if neither of the two are found, then a default container image is used. So they're going to show us an example of a Docker file. Arguments is for built-in variables from, for define the images that we're based on. Copy is for copying files to the file system, to the images file system. Run is to update package, to basically run stuff inside the image. So we see a variable parameter here, and they are doing the image from JavaScript. They are copying some libraries here, some subscripts here, and then they're running that script, I believe. Yep, they're running that script after installing, after doing an apt-get update. And then when we use the Docker file, we just have to tell it that we're using a Docker file. And other orchestration options are available. Using the default container configuration. If you don't define a configuration in your repository, GitHub creates a code space using a default Linux image and includes a bunch of tools. And it's the LTS releases of those tools. Using a predefined dev container configuration. If you use Codespaces in Visual Studio Code or in a web browser, you can create a dev container configuration for your repository by choosing from a list of predefined configurations. These configurations provide common setups for particular project types and can help you quickly get started with a configuration that already has appropriate container options. Visual Studio Code settings and Visual Code textures that should be installed. It's a great idea if you need some additional extensibility. You can also start with a predefined configuration and amend it as you need it. You can add a predefined dev container configuration either while working in a code space or while working in a repository locally. To do this in VS Code, while you're working locally and not connected to a code space, you must have the dev container extension installed and enabled. So that tells you how to add the dev container. And the following procedure describes the process when you're using a code space. So add the container file. So I had a code space actually already. It was actually the one from Haiku, the example that they had. So I'm going to run that. Opening the browser. I'm just going to open it, but so you can see that it's all in the browser. So it's opening the VS Code version, a VS Code version that is embedded in the browser, because again, VS Code is based on it's built using JavaScript using Electron, so it's definitely able to host. So we're able to, they are able to host VS Code in here. So this is running from a container in a cloud in GitHub. So this is the example that we had from another tutorial. An example repo. I don't see a container, a dev container here, the container image here. So what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna go ahead and do dev container, configure dev container. That's what the instruction said. Oh, add dev container. Okay. So let's see. Add dev. not letting me that. Well, dev container. Well, the one that says here is dev contain configure dev container, and I wonder why. Modify your active configuration. Okay. Now I don't see a dev cont. Oh, there you go. There it is. So I'm not gonna touch anything in here. Just gonna escape on that. But it's telling us that it's using that universal dev container from here, which is probably a default one. Okay, show all definitions, click on the definition you want to use. Well, let's try this. This was a JavaScript. Yeah, this was a JavaScript, I believe. So let's do that. Let's make our dev container JavaScript one. Maybe Node, yeah. Maybe I should start from scratch. Let's try starting from scratch. Continue. And then let's do Node. Now I do see that little symbol there. That's probably saying that those are the trusted ones. So creating a custom dev configuration. So you can just create the file if you're creating your configuration. And if you have multiple, then when it's time to run the code space, then they can choose. And you can also open it from the GitHub repo. So it was either from here, already inside the code space, or from GitHub repo. Try picking that JavaScript. Yeah, 18. Oh, and here we can do additional features. So we're gonna just do. Let's try type again. Node. Just don't do any more features. So okay. Let's see what happens. Override. Okay, so let's see what it generated. You generated that the name is the dev container name is Node.js. It's come from this image, and if we search for that Docker image, it's not searching it. Let's do this. No, okay, that is interesting. trying to find the details. Oh, there you go. Maybe it's this one. Or not. Well, if it's an image, let me see if I go to containers and then node. Looks like matches what we had. Oh, and there's, I guess, it's another site called devcontainers.org. This image, if we look at the image, it doesn't show. Oh, that is interesting. Look at that. Dependencies. There's no Docker file here, and I wonder it's because it's a different thing. It's like it's an image that was built using something that is not Docker. So this is a repo of repos, I believe. And this is where we were before, I believe. Let's see if I can find that here. Source, JavaScript node. Yeah, it looks like same as the same. I don't see a Docker file for this one, which kind of maybe this is Docker file. There you go. Yep. So that's the image. They're running that. Basically installing npm and node, and the base image is from node. Okay, but all that to say that we have a dev container with that reference that Docker file. We don't have any for ports, and I wonder what happens if I run this. I was able to run it before. Let's see. And nope. Ports. Let me go back to a quick start here. They told us to npm run that. Okay. So I'm gonna copy that. Oops, allow. Let's see what happens. So I'm previewing that in there. This is not updating, and I wonder why. Maybe you have to do something. It's an auto-forwarded port. Maybe they'll explain that later here. Interface save for via settings. Changes to configuration will be applied the next time you create the code space. You can apply your changes to an existing code by rebuilding the container. So let's rebuild the container to see if everything went well. because we did change that JSON file, that devcontainer.json file. Oh, and there's another tutorial specific for Node.js. Yeah, let's actually follow the tutorial here. And I'm gonna kill this. Yeah, let me just kill this one here. Close it. I'm gonna tell it that. Call my Codespaces. I'm just gonna kill it here. Stop. And then just gonna follow the tutorial from here. So they tell us to go there, to that link, and then use this template and Codespace. So open the Codespace. Let me close everything else. Let's build the container. And then the next step will be we already learned about the devcontainer.json. We need to add a dev container configuration. So we're gonna add a development container configuration file. Okay, so dev container. That's what we're gonna do next. Yeah, this one never shows add, so I'm gonna pick the configure here. So this one already has a dev container. So we're gonna do from scratch. And let's see. Show all the definitions, and then we're gonna type node, which is what we did. And then we need to do Node.js and JavaScript. Not mode, node and JavaScript. 18. And then let's see if they told us to use any features. JS hint. JS hint via npm. And then OK. It's gonna be adding that. Override. Override, yes. So if you look at the code explorer, you will see that dev container, let me open it here, the container directory has been added to the root. Some configuration, the dev container JSON file that you've added will contain values for the name, image, and features property. And let's see if it looks like that. Sure enough, that's the feature that we added, and that's the image that we picked, the Docker image, the container image that we picked. And those features are just self-contained that we can share across multiple the containers, I guess for reusability. And let's see, there's available dev container features. If we go to that site, we got wow, we got tons of features here. Lightweight desktop. What is lightweight desktop? That is very interesting, actually. Lightweight desktop. sorry for the detour here. Adds a lightweight Fluxbox-based desktop to a container so that it can be accessed using VNC or the web. Interesting. So you could actually access that container via GUI. Not that we're going to try that, but I mean, that's very interesting. Again, the container is basically a container that is running on a virtual machine. So yeah, and you got all their stuff here. Very interesting. Forward ports. Any ports listed here will be forwarded automatically. And this is something that I do want to read about, is the port forwarding. Let's see what is it about. TCP run-ins, that's what we want. Inside outputs the terminal that contains a local host. The ports are make forward. If you're using GitHub Codespaces in the browser and Visual Studio Code, the URL string in the terminal is converted into a link. But so this sends automatically forward. But you can also forward manually. Label forward ports, share forward ports. So if we want to for a port, go to the ports tab, a port, oh, and we definitely need to port for HTTPS ports, not just HTTP. So this is definitely a interesting topic, because yeah, when we forward a port, the application becomes available at a URL. You need to authenticate if you're using localhost port, or just accessing a public port or the remote domain. But you do need to authenticate if it's a private port. So it has to be a difference between public and private ports that needs to be taken into account. So that's definitely another topic for another day. Sorry, I'm looking at this. Yeah, that's definitely another topic for another day. Let's finish our tutorial here. Post create command to run commands after the code space created. So not the image, but when the code space is created. Any commands to be created after the code space is created. Customizations. This property allows you to customize a specific tool or service when it is used for working in a code space. For example, you can configure specific settings and extensions for VS Code. Remote user. By default, you are running as the VS Code user, but you can optionally set this to root. I don't know if that's a good idea. Additional dev container configuration files. We can use Docker files or Docker Compose. Modify your dev container.json file. Let's see, you can now make changes to customize your environment further. In this example, you'll add properties that will run npm install after the dev container is created to solve dependencies listed in the package.json file. And automatically install VS Code extension in Codespaces. Okay. So in the JSON file, dev container.json file, add a comma on the features and delete it. Uncomment the post create command. npm install. So we're gonna go to the post create command. And we need a comma. That's going to run npm install. And the customizations. Again, the customizations is for specific to the tools. In this particular case, VS Code, but I do wonder if we can also use customizations for JetBrains. Yep, it says right there VS Code, so it's specific for VS Code, but we'll see later on in our video probably if we can do it for JetBrains as well. And then rebuild the container. That's just to test that we have done the right thing. I believe I saved it. We'll see. Now notice one thing, that I didn't have to clone this repo. This repo belongs to Microsoft, but I didn't have to clone it because my code space, which is defined in my account, that code space has, just like your normal Git, it has a local clone version of that Git repo. Okay, so it finished running. And it didn't look like there was any errors. And then run your application. Well, after the container is rebuilt and your code space becomes available again, the PostScript command will have been run, install npm, and the code spell checker extension will be available for use. Well, I do see the node modules there. Let's see. And the logs. Not sure if I can see anything from here that shows the npm install. Probably not. But I can see that the npm install ran because it did that. We added the packet log and the node modules. We're also gonna check for code spell checker. There you go. So it's there. So we're gonna do the npm start. I hate paste, copy and paste. Then let's see. npm start. Again, I'm doing all this through a browser. Okay, hello remote world. So that looks successful. It auto forwarded that port automatically, like it was mentioned before. Now you have made changes to your code space, either new code or configuration changes. You'll want to commit your changes. Committing configuration changes to your repository ensures that anyone else who creates a code space from this repository has the same configuration. So I have the code space, but we need to save it into the repo, into our own clone version, fork version of the repo. That way, anybody else who wants to build their own workspace out of it, then they can build it. Again, the code space is working for us right now, for our account, but not necessarily for other accounts. So the code in your code space is not just stored in a repository. You can create a repository by publishing the current branch to GitHub. Okay, so we're gonna publish that. We're gonna go to our normal icon here. We're gonna do initial my first dev container, commit, always publish the branch. I'm gonna publish it to a private GitHub in my account. There you go. Now everybody that if another person wants to create this code space that we have right here, they'll be able to do that. And now we can see that if I'm gonna kill my code space. I'm gonna kill this one too. We're gonna see that if I go to here, new code space, I'm gonna select a repository. And again, this is the one we created. This is the dev container that we created. So it's gonna use that. We're gonna use US East to core, that's fine, create code space. So it should do those things that we told it to do, like the npm install and that extension, because we defined that on the devcontainer.json file. Okay, let's see if we can do logs. Oh, that's neat. We can see what it's doing right now. That JS hint that we saw before. And I believe that npm is from the, nope, not yet. Again, this is a completely new code space, a completely new VM, excuse me, a completely new container in a completely new VM. It has nothing to do with the previous code space that we had before, but because we had a dev container JSON file, we described what had to happen, and we have, there you go, we got our npm install ran, and it did the node modules here, it installed the node modules, and then if I go to the extensions, we can see the code space there. So that's it. We finished a tutorial on how to set up our first dev container JSON file to define our dev container inside our repo to create a reproducible environment for development. Thank you.